He was one of the most important and influential of all the jazz tenor saxophonists. His cool lyrical approach to playing communicated greatly to not only tenor saxophonists, but to players on all instruments. Who was Lester Young? Here on Big on Bebop. He was born Lester Willis Young on August 27, 1909 in Woodville, Mississippi, into a musical family. He was raised primarily in New Orleans and then later in Minneapolis. His father, Willis Handy Young, was a band leader and teacher, and Lester learned to play several instruments as a child, including violin, trumpet, and drums. However, by his teens, he had settled on the tenor saxophone, an instrument that would become his voice and legacy. After leaving his father's touring band in 1927, reportedly to avoid the Jim Crow South, he took up baritone, then tenor sax, while with Art Bronson's Bostonians. During the next 5 years, he was in and out of many bands, including Frank Hines, Eugene Schuck, Walter Page's Blue Devils, Eddie Bearfield, and Boyd Atkins. He settled in Kansas City after leaving the Blue Devils in 1933, eventually forming relationships with key musicians in the burgeoning Kansas City jazz scene. He played with Clarence Love and King Oliver. He was hired briefly by Fletcher Henderson, who was dissatisfied with Young's frostier-than-Hawkins tone. After 6 months with Andy Kirk, he joined Count Basie. Lester Young's major breakthrough came when he joined Count Basie's orchestra in Kansas City in 1936. This period solidified Young as a major voice in jazz. His light, floating tone and smooth phrasing stood in stark contrast to the robust, hard-blowing sound popularized by Coleman Hawkins, the dominant tenor saxophonist of the time. With Basie, Young became a defining figure of the swing era, especially with recordings like Lester Leaps In, 1 O'Clock Jump, and Taxi War Dance. His playing style was relaxed, melodic, and rhythmically elastic, a revolutionary approach that emphasized coolness, understatement, and linear improvisation. He always cited Frankie Trombauer as his original idol, but also admired Jimmy Dorsey. Young's playing redefined the role of the tenor saxophone in jazz. His light, airy, smooth tone, highly melodic and rhythmically innovative phrasing, his lyrical lines, introducing a conversational and modern aesthetic to jazz improvisation. Young was also famous for his unique vernacular and dress, favoring pork pie hats, zoot suits, and using the slang later infiltrated jazz and beat generation culture, calling people lady, including men, and coining the term cool. Lester Young shared a deep musical emotional bond with singer Billie Holiday. The two collaborated frequently in the 1930s and 40s, especially on recordings with pianist Teddy Wilson. Young's gentle melodic lines were a perfect complement to Holiday's intimate vocal style. She nicknamed him Prez, short for President of the Tenor Saxophone, and he in turn called her Lady Day. Recordings such as A Sailboat in the Moonlight, The Man I Love remain landmark moments in jazz interplay between voice and horn. In 1944, Young was drafted into the U.S. Army. Despite being a world-renowned musician, he faced racism and abuse during his service. He was eventually court-martialed and served time in the military detention barracks. This traumatic experience profoundly affected Young. After the war, his tone and demeanor had changed. His playing grew darker and more introspective. Although he continued to perform and record in the 1940s and 50s, Young's style was less in a step with the rise of bebop. Still, his influence was felt strongly by many leading bebop and cool jazz musicians, including Charlie Parker, Stan Getz, John Coltrane, Zoot Sims, and Paul Desmond. Young's phrasing and tone were particularly foundational to the cool jazz movement on the West Coast. His post-war recordings include Prez and Teddy with Teddy Wilson in 1956, The Jazz Giants in 1956, the Norman Granz Verve label, and Lester Young with the Oscar Peterson Trio. Though his playing in the 50s showed signs of wear due to alcoholism and declining health, there were still moments of brilliance. Lester Young's health declined steadily, exacerbated by alcohol abuse and the lingering psychological effects of the military service. His performance became erratic, though at times still deeply moving. In 1957, he appeared in The Sound of Jazz TV special where he performed Fine and Mellow alongside Billie Holiday. Though visibly frail, his performance was emotionally devastating, a final reunion with Lady Day that became one of the most iconic moments in jazz television history. Lester Young died on March 15, 1959 in New York City at the age of 49. Billie Holiday died just 4 months later. Lester Young redefined the role and the sound of the tenor saxophone. He brought a new, cool aesthetic to jazz improvisation and was a direct influence to generations of saxophonists, helping shape both the bebop and cool jazz movements. Lester Young, an iconic jazz tenor saxophone player.